Hello, everyone. So thank you for joining this session. I know there's a lot of parallel topics talking about quite the same thing. But so thank you very much for coming, and especially this is the last session before the closing one. So just enjoy. So I'm going to talk about Che7. I know we had like a lot of presentation about Che7 previously. And so in this presentation, I'm going to try to focus on the setup part of Che7. Means that how you can easily set up your applications with Che7. And I'm going to take the example of Quarkus as an example. And maybe if you know Quarkus, or if you don't know Quarkus, I may do some introduction. Okay? Okay, before we start, I have to introduce myself. My name is Sun. I am a developer. I'm the senior software engineer at Red Hat. I work on the project called Eclipse Che and Code Workspaces, which is the product on top of Che. And during the night, I do other stuff like running the Paris Java user group. And that's pretty it from about me. You can follow me in Twitter with the __Synix_ handle. So questions for you. What is your favorite ID? So who used in the room VI? Yeah. Emacs? Nope. Oh, VI and Emacs. Okay. IntelliJ, you are in Eclipse, come on. Eclipse ID, Visual Studio Code. Okay, so I can see that some people use several IDs at the same time. Congrats. NetBeans, no, nobody. And Che. Yeah, so I asked this question because I don't know if you remember, but few years ago, there was that story about, what is your favorite operating system? So, for instance, myself, I was more Debian, but some other people were more like Red Hat or Fedora or macOS 10 or some other people's Windows. And so that was that thing. And I remember when I started one of the projects when I was a contractor. I came the first day in the company, and then I just had my laptop with my Debian my favorite Debian operating system. And the guy there just told me, no, but you cannot use your laptop. You have to use this computer with Windows. And I say, okay, I'm in trouble. But I finally managed to install something called Docker and use containers. And I could do something like reusing some tools that I used to use when I was using Debian, simply by running a simple commands like that, docker run something, and plus the idea of one image. And I could run things like that. This is a simple example of one command I was using. So it's a simple command to merge PDF files. And I could run it everywhere. So like in Windows, in macOS 10, in Linux, of course. And I remember, so okay, for this kind of tools, it's convenient. But what if you want to run your own ID? And I remember few years ago, I saw a guy talking about running the Eclipse ID inside Docker, and say, oh, that would be awesome to do that. But at the time, it was cool, but has lots of issue because, of course, it wasn't like suited. He was doing like export of the X server, and it wasn't that convenient finally. So we were losing the benefits. So my story is, so to come back to the question, is that today, it may be not that important what is your favorite operating system. What I'm going to show you is Eclipse Che, And the only things that you would need to run Eclipse is just Kubernetes and OpenShift. And you will be able to run any workspace environment development with this tool. So what we try to do to solve today in Che is this kind of story. For instance, Paul, he has things that works on his machine, but he cannot share that with his colleagues. Like, for instance, it only works on his machine, but on other machines of his colleagues, it doesn't work. Joe, he just came. He's just been hired in the company and spent 2 days in setting his environment for developing. And Jack, he wants to work on a project, but he doesn't know how to run the build and the run. So he looked at the documentation, but the documentation was not updated. So I'm more Jack because the last time I tried to run one of the projects with Go, and I didn't know how to compile in Go. So that's Jack is my new surname. So Che, what is Che? So who has heard about Che? Yes. So this is my definition. This is a definition of a developer called Suntan. So he said that Che7 is a cloud IDE that takes the best of Kubernetes to provide the best IDE experience for you to code your cloud-native applications. Concretely, it's what we call a kube-native IDE. Means that it runs on Kubernetes. You will have a web UI to write your code. All the things, I mean, the tools and the IDE is running inside containers. I mean, so it means server side. What you will be able to do is to run a development environment on demand. It means that if you start a new task, a new issue, then you can create a brand new developer environment. You can customize the user access and have multiple users to have access to their own space or a team that works together, and it's highly customizable. So I'm going to start the demo. Is it fine for you? Okay, so for this demo, I'm going to show one way to start a Che workspace. You have to know that there's multiple ways to do, but this is just one way to do. So a way to do is to have a link to your GitHub project that will generate a brand new developer environment. So I'm going to run it, and it's going to start. Okay, so what it is doing. So this is actually going to run a URL into the Che instance, and we will provide to this URL a dev file. And this dev file will contain all the definition of the developer environment. So it actually contains information such as projects, tools, plugins, the environments to build your projects, to run your projects, to test your projects, and few commands like for Jack to build and to run the project and to debug as well. So by clicking on this link, it will generate it for me. And it's actually what I meant by on demand. It means that if I want to restart a new one, I can do it as well. It would be another workspace that would be started, and it would be in a separate and isolated environment. So it looks like a YAML file, and it contains all the information that I just told you previously. So if I'm going back to the workspace, so it has been started. And the first thing it's going to do is to clone the project. Is it okay? You can see? Or I need to zoom in? Zoom in a bit? So now it is cloning the project. And if I go to the side panel, I can see that the project is loaded. So this is actually what has been defined in my dev file. So the dev file, you will provide the sources, and it will clone automatically the sources. Then you also have some commands that will be available in a side panel. So here, you will find the containers that I have set up for my workspace and the commands to run. Okay. Sorry. And let's have a look to the application we want to code. So who knows Quarkus? So you have seen the keynote or not? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do a live demo about Quarkus. Oops, sorry, it was not the right screen. So what I've done before the talk is that in OpenShift cluster, I've started a few of the application. And there is the backend, which is built in Quarkus. And then here there is the front end. And I can access to the application with the root that are exposed. So the backend looks like that. So if I hit the backend, it's just a REST API, a REST endpoint, and it shows some posts. And the front end is the React application, where I can, for instance, show the list of the posts and add new ones. Hello, Eclipse. Hello. And what I've done in my Che workspaces and my dev file is that I configure the source code so I can do everything inside inside Che. So as you may guess, I have not configured anything previously. So I haven't installed anything beside Che. And I just had this dev file that generated everything. And I can start now to, I would start to make some compilation first. For instance, native compilation. I will explain you later what it is, so I don't lose time for the demo. So I'm running the build of Quarkus native compilation, and at the same time I'm going to build the node frontend, which is not that fast actually. Okay, so a bit about Quarkus. So it's a Java framework, a new Java framework to build client-native application, microservices, and serverless stuff. But why? Because so today we are more and more using tools like Kubernetes or OpenShift in the cloud to start your application. So things are going to run on containers. Whereas in the past, with Java application, the application were like started and running for a very long time. So it was the time when we had like 2 application server, and you run it and still like living. And at that time, it was good to have the Java application doing a lot of stuff at runtime, because that it was like optimizing during the runtime when you're using it. But in the cloud space, it is not the same paradigm. So because what we want to do is be able to run microservices very quickly. And these microservices may scale, so we had to run quickly, but it may also die quickly. So you may just run the microservice just few seconds and then kill it. And Java was not made for that, so that's why Quarkus has been made. So there's four benefits for Che. On this demo, I'm going to mostly focus on the developer joy and the supersonic Java. And yeah. Okay, so what do I need for Quarkus if I want to code on Quarkus? So I need Maven. I may need GraalVM if I want to do the native compilation, and so on. I want to have the Java IntelliSense. Oops, sorry. Oh. Poster. Okay. And I want to be able to use the dev mode. So this is the first benefit of Quarkus, the developer joys. The dev mode is a mode where you can run Quarkus very quickly, your application with Quarkus, and then do hot reload and so on. This is the dev mode. I want to be able to perform the native compilation. I will come back later. And I want to also be able, finally, to try your application on a production container. So exactly as you have in production. And this is something that you cannot do in your local computer. Like if you install your classic IDE with Maven and so on, you at some point you will have to run a Kubernetes instance and try it. But otherwise, it's pretty hard. The other thing that is hard on your local computer is to install GraalVM, for instance. I don't know how hard it is, but it's one of the problem. Which version to choose for GraalVM? If you're on Mac OS, if you're on Linux, it may differ. That's one of the problems that you may have. So developer joys, as I told you, it's mainly hot reload, very fast, very clean. So let's take, for example, this project. So what I'm going to do is wait a bit because the native compilation hasn't finished. And continue on the Quarkus presentation. Yeah. So the second thing is what I call the native compilation. The idea is to make a very tiny binary that will run on the very tiny container, and that takes a very tiny bits of memory. So there's several options. So the traditional cloud native stack, which is quite big. There is the way to run Quarkus on a classic JVM, and the last one is to compile your Quarkus application in a very tiny binary. So yes, the second thing is when you run your native application, it will run very fast. It's like takes few milliseconds. So there's some graph that shows the difference and how you get how much you get. So imagine you go from 4 seconds to a few milliseconds with Quarkus on the native compilation. So going back to Che. Yes. Yes, I'm going to kill it so we can continue. So I'm going to run this command, and this command will run the dev mode. So it has already been started. And I can open a link to this application. So this is, so as you can see, it is showing here the item that we just shown previously. What I'm going to do is just copy the URL and update the roots for my node application. And that's it. And then what I can do now is run my the React application. Yeah, start from React frontend. So as you can see, I had nothing to do to be ready to code on and do some modification on my computer. So everything was already set up. And I'm going to use the code completion here. Oops. Oh, what's that? Okay. And do, for instance, sorry. So we wait for the application to run, and then, so now I have if I refresh, something is wrong. Okay, it's because I started to change the file, of course. So I'm going to use I'm going to put that in uppercase, and automatically, normally, if I refresh, it should be updated. Yeah, so you see that it has been already updated, so the title is in uppercase. What I can also do is debug the application in Che. So Che has already like set up everything for debugging. And oops. And I have a demo effect. So, applause. So, okay. Let's move on. To the next thing. So, yes, production ready and CI ready. What I mean by that is that with Che, as you may have seen in the dev file, I've set up some images that I'm using for building the application. So, for instance, when I run the native compilation, it is done with the same container that you could use for your CI. So, for instance, in the CI, I may have this Docker file, which is a multi-stage Docker build, which will take exactly the same image that you have in your CI to build your application. And you would use it inside your workspace. So it means that you can perform the native compilation before having to push to GitHub and trigger the continuous integration to build your application. And you could try then your native application. And you could also try your application with the real runtime for your application. So, for instance, this Quarkus runner, it's the very tiny one, and this is the one that you're gonna use in production. And you could try it in Che before having that pushed in Git. Yeah, same for the command. So in the CI, I run Maven package native, and I have that command in my workspace. So I'm exactly in the same configuration. So the thing is, it's not only about having the same configuration in the same environment for the production environment. It's also having the same configuration for your build environment. And you have everything inside in the inner loop. Last thing about Quarkus is the fact that you have a lot of libraries that are compatible with the Quarkus thingy. So I'm going to try again the debug mode. No, doesn't make it. Maybe I would try a refresh. And try again. Okay, I give up. Okay, to wrap up, yes, so you remember that this guy, Paul, Joe, and Jack, so they had that their program. And today with Che, we are solving this kind of problem. So Jack managed to produce his bug because he's used Che and managed to push everything in production. Joe, he has deployed. He's just been hired, and he had just clicked on the dev file and managed to run the development environment and build and run the application. And Jack managed to build his application in Go and run the application. So with Che, we saved the developer life of Paul, Joe, Jack, and myself. So so I've just shown you a little tiny features that we have in Che, but I cannot. I would spend like 4 hours to show everything. These are the list of things that we do. For instance, I didn't told you about the editor that is very close to the experience that you have in VSCode. There is also this VSCode extensions compatibility. Means that we are compatible with VSCode extension. The difference is that our plugins comes with the container. So for instance, if you have for the Java plugin, we use the VSCode extension for Java, and we provide all the dependencies like Maven or the JDK in a container, so you don't have to install anything else more than what it is providing in the plugin. The dev file to do, this is what I've shown you. And there is the tools to monitor and administrate the whole application and to see, yeah. So this is a slide that's it's just for me. So the few things that I love in Che. The first thing is what you can do with Che is that you can be able to share your development environment, because it is finally just a file. I can just give the dev file to you, and if you have Che installed somewhere, you will be able to start exactly the same developer environment. You maybe know write once code anywhere. This is something that Java developer say a lot. And this is the case. So when I use a dev file, I write it once, and then I don't have to, if I change my computer, for instance, have to redo my setup of my developer environment. So this is the story. Try new technologies. So the thing is that when you want to try new things like Quarkus, you don't want to go into the installation of libraries like GraalVM and so on. And you don't want to pollute your computer. If you want to try the new version of Java, sometimes you don't want to mess up with the one that you're using every day. With Che, because everything is in containers, you can easily start a workspace, try new things, and then remove it. You just need a Kubernetes or OpenShift, so to run Che. No need to install new tools on your computer. This is only things that we need to run Che. The VSCode compatibility, of course. So we have a lot of features that come with the VSCode marketplace. Last thing, I don't do that setup very often. It's sudo rm-rf/ to crash your computer. But frankly speaking, when you update your operating system, for instance, sometimes you are afraid of breaking your environment and not be able to work again. So, but with Che, because everything is stored as files and I can originate it anywhere, I can safely make an upgrade of my operating system. So that two things I love when I'm using Che. Yeah, so I invented a new thing called developer environment as code. And that's pretty it. Do you have any questions? And thank you.